Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Healing Circle with 111 Ways to Heal. My name is Alex and I am here with Annie and Tash, and we're at my apartment and I'm currently bunny sitting as well. So we've got my family's bunnies over here. They're just chilling. That's Miko and Lady. And unfortunately, we don't have Kat with us today. So we're missing her for this episode. So sending her lots of love. Today, we're talking about sisterhood wounds. Just to kind of define what that is for people who don't know. A sister wound is the pain of being consistently betrayed or wounded by other women in our lives and culture. And I feel like that is a common theme for, I guess, like anyone who identifies as a woman.
Like with anything in life, there is an infinite number of things that are healing to us. 111 Ways to Heal podcast is about that. Enjoy.
As a starting point, I want to ask everyone, what is your experience with the sister wound in your own lives?
What a good question. Actually, I didn't think that we would have this question, but it's nice to go back into personally in my journey, like what started the wounds and like the feeling of betrayal for me, because I had that since childhood. It was really interesting. It was the first pattern I ever noticed, and I noticed patterns quite a lot in my life. It's coming from childhood, like really young childhood before going to school. Like I had a friend of my grandma's friend, so she was a grandchild of her, like friends. So we were, obviously put together, just girls go do like whatever you want. And we were friends and everything, but she was like a couple of years older than me. It was like one-sided friendship, I think. She was really using me. At some point, I needed to stand up for myself, and nobody really saw what she was doing to me apart from just me experiencing it. And I couldn't even explain what was going on because she was really good with people, like when adults were around. So I couldn't even explain what was happening, but I really needed to stand up for myself. And I did let it go too far, I think, into bullying. But at one point I was like, okay, that's it. I'm cutting this person off. It was really interesting because I was sort of introduced to other friends around a neighborhood. After that, I was, again, part of this friendship with girls, and we were just having like amazing time. And again, it wasn't too bad in terms of bullying or anything, but it was again the point where I was like, I'm not letting this happen like again. And it wasn't even bullying towards me, it was bullying towards my grandma, which is really weird. That like again, like behind her back, but I was like, I'm not letting this happen. Like, this is not the people that I be associated with. And I had to cut off friends again. It was really painful. It was really sad because I just stood up for my grandma, but kind of they cut off me as a result of it. But like that was a choice that I made to like first to stand like against them. So I lost my second friendship. Like it was first ever and then second ever, and both of them were lost. And then it happened again at school. And when it happened the third time, I was like, this will never happen again. This will never happen again. Like I'm going to be a lot more selective in who I let in my life. And since then, it had never happened. And I really did become a lot more selective with who I let into my life, but also selective by just sort of checking in with myself. Like, how is this aligning, and am I really pushing who I am and my boundaries by being with these people, or am I getting to know them and if something doesn't align, like I just let this go before it grows into like deep friendship that's built on lie that I tell to myself, that this is gonna work out. Thinking back, this pattern could have just kept going. That's why like experiencing it for the third time made me realize I am in the middle of this loop that keeps happening. It's always the same, that I needed to really go deep inside and kind of question who I am and my friendship and like all of this, not to let it happen again. If this never would have happened, I probably would have been a lot less invested into self-reflection, because that was really a push that I received since childhood. Since then, it never happened, and I'm really grateful for like all the friendships I've had since then. And since then, I've also been journaling about friendship and what it means for me and how I see myself, kind of vouching to myself that I will have more female friends, because since it happened for the third time, that's when I was like, well, I'm going to be friends only with guys. And for a while I was, but apart from like one person, one girl in my life, but yeah, for a while I was only friends with guys, and that came with a lot of betrayal and problems in my life as well, because yeah, they did. They all fell in love with me. It was really sad. It was like, what do you mean? I thought we were friends. Something I did not expect. But I think a lot was learned from that. But like also really missed the feminine friendships, and I'm glad I came back to that, because I'm surrounded by like the best people in the world. Even this week like is a testament to that I have so many beautiful people in my life that I can open up and say like I'm going through a difficult time right now, and still feel the beautiful support, or like the words of just wisdom or love, and be held in that way. But it all came from like that deep betrayal.
So just going back to what you said, you noticed there was a pattern of just, I guess, you attracting, or not maybe you attracting, but just finding these friendships that constantly betray you. What are those things that you've noticed that were similar? Like, were you maybe subconsciously looking for a particular traits from people, or was it, I don't know, attracting maybe is I don't know if that's the correct word, but like attracting people that are maybe not the best people for you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I definitely was noticing the pattern that I was not myself. I was meshing into someone else to fit in, and I would always be the different one in that scenario. And I think it's just because we were really different people, you know, especially first two scenarios where like I was just introduced to the kid that was like convenient to be friends with by my parents or my grandma or something. So it was like not the situation where you get to know each other and you think you need to be friends. It's more like, oh, it just makes sense because we're neighbors, or because we like live not that far away, or our parents are friends. In school it was similar. It was like more of a cool kids. Maybe we had something in common, and then just kind of started pushing into the friendship rather than really getting to know each other. What happened is I stopped ever tolerating the need in myself to pretend that I'm someone else again.
My brain is kind of trying to piece together everything and make a timeline out of it, but I don't necessarily think I need to. But this has been a theme that's come up probably over the past like 3 months to 6 months for me, like quite deeply, where the universe has been gifting me with opportunities to connect with women and start healing these wounds. And they've run so deep, and it's connected to so many different parts of me and layers of my being. Like I can see where we feel like we need to compete with or be better than. And so I feel like a lot of my teenage years, there was this competition with the feminine for the attention of the masculine. And that was really a huge theme for me. And there were still a lot of betrayals and experiences, but like I'm able to see now too where I wasn't really the best friend. You know, there were a lot of experiences and times where I wasn't choosing the feminine. You know, I was putting the masculine or my relationships before my friends. And even things like that can cause betrayal and mistrust. And, you know, I have love and compassion for myself because at the time I didn't really know better. I was just doing what I could to survive. But it even goes as deep as like primary school. Like I was quite a excitable, cheeky, playful kid, and I'd get really excited and could be quite loud. And even times where, Brene Brown, what is she? I love her. She talks about candle blower outers. So she instills in her children, she said as her children were growing up, she would always talk to them about friends and which friends are going to be supportive and which friends might not necessarily be supportive. And she said there are people that will, you know, cradle their hands around your light to help your flame stay alight and will love your shine. But then there might be friends who might blow out your candle. And I feel like throughout a lot of high school and primary school, even, you know, experiences through family and through friends and through my parents, were times where I feel like my light was really dimmed and not allowed to shine. And I think this touches on what you were speaking about, Anna, in those moments where, you know, you feel like you have to dim yourself or not allow yourself to fully be a light or be who you are. I definitely think that's impacted me quite a lot too, or feeling like I need to then dull myself so that I can allow someone else to shine and be seen, versus us allowing ourselves to just be who we are. But so to circle back, I told you guys I wrote this poem called The Wounded Healer recently, and what inspired that was reconnecting with a girl who I was friends with in high school when we were about 15 or so. That was a really, really challenging time for me. Like I was going through a lot, and I was in a really abusive relationship, and I was consuming a lot of substances. I really wasn't a good friend. Like the only thing on my mind in that time of my life was my partner, and having his affection and attention and being, perfect or everything for him, because the thought of losing his love was the most deathly thing that I could have experienced. And there were so many situations where I really wasn't a good friend. And then my shadow, and that, there was so much abuse that I experienced that then that like anger and rage was also, that shadow was let out somewhere else. And there were times where I was quite mean. And I actually ran into her because I'm living locally where I grew up, and I ran into her at the doctor's, and she messaged me and, "Do you want to grab a coffee?" And then we went and we got a coffee, and we sat there for hours expressing and sharing. And I apologized to her, and I've really reflected on how I showed up then. Even though I didn't know better at the time, I know better now to want to make amends, because you didn't deserve that. She was so forgiving and lovely, and shared a lot about her life and what she had experienced later on, because she was like, "I didn't understand what you had gone through until I was in my 20s, because I went through a really challenging relationship too." And just having like all of that compassion and love and witnessing on the table was so healing. And so then I wrote this poem called The Wounded Healer, which is like from the wounded to the wounder to the wounded to the healer. And it's just about this journey of who are we, like in what ways do we project our shadow onto other people? In what way am I, yes, wounded, but in what way am I also wounding? And a lot of I hope all this makes sense. And a lot of like this whole sisterhood healing and relationship and wounding and everything, it just, when we look at the whole dance of like, who am I in relation and who are they, is where this healing and this freedom and this connection can really come. I dedicate this to everyone who's been hurt and who's hurt others. In shadows deep, where echoes vie, my victim's voice begins to cry. With wounds unseen, through pain I tread, a fragile heart, in fear I'm led. The world seems cold, a place of strife, each glance a threat, each word a knife. My soul retreats, defense in place. As hope grows dim, I hide my face. But in the dark, a shadow wakes. My perpetrator slowly takes. In pain I lash to numb my own, a path of thorns where hurt is prone. The wounds I bear, I now impart. Another's soul I tear apart. The cycle spins, a bitter dance. Yet in this pain, I find my stance. In shadow's grip, I seek control, but lose the light within my soul. For power gained through fear and might extinguishes my inner light. Yet from the depth of wounds I've bled, my wounded healer lifts its head. In knowing pain, in bearing scars, I shape the dark into new stars. For in the pain that I have known, the seeds of healing have been sown. My wounded healer, wise and true, now guides me through the darkness too. So let me walk with heart and grace by shadow's depth and light's embrace, to heal the wounds and face the night. In both I find my soul's delight. Thanks, guys.
I definitely resonate with a lot of the stuff that you guys have shared as well. I feel like my sister wounds definitely started at a young age, and I think just society's expectations, a lot of the media that we consume as well is like pitting women against other women, and you just naturally pick that up. I was like, oh, that's how I'm meant to behave towards other women as well. My experiences with it as well is probably like that need to belong, where I try to be someone who I'm not and trying to find approval from other women. And in school, there's always that cool group of girls that you just want to be part of. And so you try to, I don't know, just feel like you belong and try to be one of them. And sometimes you act in ways where it's not really you, but you just kind of want to get people's approval. And I feel like sometimes people can pick up that that's really not you. And so they probably just respond to that type of energy where if like they know that you're not being genuine, they're not going to be genuine back to you. I feel like that's probably some unconscious thing that people just naturally do. When Anna was saying as well, when she started being her genuine self, that's when she started attracting a lot more genuine friendships. I feel like that's really resonant as well, because I feel like people can feel that when you're like confident in yourself and you just being unapologetically you, then people can feel that energy, and then that also gives them that safe space to just be themselves as well. And if there's that energetic exchange of just like, I'm showing up to this friendship as my authentic self, so you can do the same. And I feel like that's obviously just a realization that I've had when I was much older. I found it hard actually to make friends with girls when I was younger. I found it easier to be friends with guys because I feel like there was less deciphering of what they were trying to say. What they said is what it was. For women, they might say like, oh, that's so pretty, that's so nice, but there's some underlying message, or it's not fully genuine. Even their actions trying to decipher, what did she mean by that, or why did she do that, well, what's the reason behind her doing that.
They're not as direct when things go wrong. And I feel like guys as well, like if they're irritated or shitty or pissed off, they're just like, bro, why did I love it. I was like, bro, why did you do that? And maybe this is like cultural suppression of us feeling like we can't speak our truth and everything like that, but there is more of an indirectness when we're not happy with something.
Exactly. So I feel like that's why maybe, I think I was never really the type to like throw out fake comments. I mean, I've definitely done that when I was younger to feel that I belonged, but it didn't really feel natural. And so I just kind of realized like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to act like I like something or throw fake compliments at people when I don't mean them. So I just naturally just gravitated towards a lot more like guy friendships.
Like Mean Girls, Regina George.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like the stereotype of it. You know, I mean, even that movie also just perpetuates that behavior with women around that time in our, like, you know, just how you're supposed to act. Like if you're the cool girl, you're supposed to be mean. You know, why do you have to be mean?
I'm so curious because I know you grew up in the Philippines and then you moved here, was it in high school, towards the end of high school? So I'm so curious about like the experiences there and then coming here and and sisterhood connections.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm also aware that I moved in a period where, so I was 17, a turbulent time of your life where you're also trying to figure out who you are and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I was lucky enough as well that I grew up with my cousins. I'm close to like two of my cousins who are girls, they're sisters as well. And then I also have a sister who I grew up with. And we have, you know, we have arguments, we have fights, but I think it's because like your siblings, you know, that whatever fight that you have, you'll just make amends or just like, forget about it eventually. So luckily I had them. They were the people that I trust, and I know that even if I do the most stupid thing that they will just accept me for who I am still. But in terms of like making friends outside, I think I found it easier in the Philippines, maybe because I knew where everyone was coming from culturally. We were all, I guess, Filipinos, and so we knew what was socially accepted. Everyone had the same expectation of how women were meant to behave or how socially you're meant to behave. So I feel like maybe that also helped a little bit in terms of the socializing aspect of it. Whereas coming into Australia, obviously it's a very diverse environment. Like, people from different cultures are here and people have different humor, and you can easily say something that could offend other people and you're not aware that it's offensive for them. Also, society's changing, so there's so many things as well that you have to be aware now of. Back in the Philippines, it's just like one thing. It's pretty consistent. It was definitely a lot more difficult here for me, and I think it's only just recently actually that I've been able to confidently make friends with other women. And I think that was after I also just began to explore who I really was as well, and what do I look for in relationships? What do I value in relationships? Rather than coming from that desire of being accepted or that need to belong, I really shifted it into like, what am I looking for other people, and can I find that in me first? And so it's more of an attracting thing where it's like, if I want my friends to be genuine, if I want my friends to be supportive and nurturing, can I be that first for myself and to other people? And so that will just naturally attract the same type of people in my life. Maybe there is a relationship of the sister wound with yourself as well, like your own wounding with yourself, like your own relationship with yourself, and how you choose to relate or how you behave with other women as well. So it's like you projecting your own in a way to other women. It's kind of going back to the wounder and the wounded, because we're all hurt in a way, and like, you know, hurt people. So it's like recognizing first your own wounds and how am I projecting that to other people. It's been really wholesome because like you guys are an example of that. Like finding you guys has been healing and really special, because I feel like this is the kind of like friendship that I was craving for when I was in my teenage years, where I can just be fully open and vulnerable and like not be judged and not trying to perform or act in a certain way. But I guess it's really hard to find friendships around that age as well, because everyone's trying to figure out who they are.
I'm also curious, I feel like Anna, because you spent a lot of time in the Ukraine as well, yeah? And then came here, what your experience was like from there to here.
Yeah, I was 15 when I came to Australia, and it was definitely different. And I also found cultural differences. And actually, even though I kind of found a friend almost immediately, it was again on the basis that we spoke Russian and we were same age and our parents knew each other. So it was that moment where actually was a good test for me, like for me to fit in with the personality of the friend, or to actually just stand on my own and be myself. And I chose myself because I knew that it needed to happen. Like I needed to just stay myself. So the friendship didn't last for too long because we were just very different people. But that kind of definitely eased me into the culture, because I got to learn a lot from someone like another person who've experienced the change in the country but at a different age. So she could show me a lot about the cultures and differences. Tash, I think, was one of my first Australian friends, and it's taking me a while, right? I think it's like all around the same time that I started making friends with Australians, because for like 10 years I've been only friends with other immigrants in Australia. And I think it's because, again, culturally it felt so much more safer to be with someone who's experienced what I've experienced, the identity crisis that you experience when you change countries and the difficulties around like culture. I did try, it's just I never felt understood. I'm grateful that now like I'm breaking that stereotype as well, because now I have kind of crossed that mark of like, no, I am friends with Australians as well in Australia, you know. Broke that stereotype for me that no, the Australians are quite understanding people, and it's just, again, it's not about culture, it's just about a person individually that you can connect or not connect with, that's all. After working with a lot of international students in my career, I definitely see a lot of struggles people have in making friends with locals, because they already have their roots here, they already have their friendships, their circles. I don't expect, them to be letting someone else in just so quickly and so easily, because it's, I think, what any other culture would experience as well. I'm grateful I've moved past that, and I kind of feel quite Aussie myself now. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why I'm kind of finding it easier to be letting all the other experiences as a foreigner behind me and just connect on a personal level rather than be the foreigner in the room. Because it did feel like this in many instances. I can hear someone snoring. Is that one of the rabbits? Oh my god. It's so cute.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned how you were finding it hard to make friends with people who grew up here and who weren't immigrants. And actually, that was I had the same experience. I found at the first few years of moving here, I was just a lot more comfortable making friends with other Filipinos or other Asians, just because it's easier culturally to just understand each other. But I found like being more open, I guess, and understanding of other people, or the willingness to understand where other people were coming from, made me a lot more comfortable in opening up to other people and also just understanding different dynamics and like how different friendships can form. I'm glad that I shifted my mindset from that, because I feel like if I just stuck to, let's say, hanging out with other Filipinos or other Asians, I wouldn't have grown to the person that I am now.
This whole talk now has just got me thinking that I remember from 17, 18. So I dropped out of school when I was 16 and I went to Macedonia for a few months with my grandma. I think I shared this on my podcast with Anna, my one-on-one. And I've always felt like an alien. Like I've never really felt truly like I belonged anywhere, despite seeking this desire for belonging and connection. And I just always felt like so out of place. And then I went to Macedonia and connected with a lot of different people, and it really opened my eyes and mind to the possibility of something new or something greater. And I always had this fantasy and this epic desire to just travel and explore. And then when I came back, I went to finish my VC at RMIT, and I made friends with a lot of exchange students. And ever since then, I've always just sought out friendships with immigrants or students here on exchange from other countries. I thought that was funny and something to ponder. I really loved where this chat has gone. And I love what you guys have shared around the cultural differences and challenges, and then also Australia being such a diverse space where it can be confusing if you've grown up with just one thing. I was always so intrigued by people from other cultures and different places, because I did feel like it really opened and expanded my mind and my ideas of what was normal. And shout out to Deborah in the UK. I love you.
So I now feel like we are in a similar path of being ready to heal some of those wounds, and that is just the fact that Tash, you bumped into your old friend is like a testament for that, right? That you are ready to heal some of those wounds. And the fact that we bumped into each other as well, like it did bring such unexpected friendship and peace and this podcast into my life personally, that was a testament again that I was ready for something like this. And I do wonder, can you self-reflect on the moment where that kind of moved from not ready to ready? And I can do that myself and share that with you. The first time I felt like I was ready is when I was super lonely, and that was because I was focusing on my relationship and not my friendships for a few years. And I was already out of uni, and I was kind of at work where I was in the position that I didn't really have any friends that would be friends with me. I had a lot of subordinates that were kind of my age, but it was really weird to be their manager and I couldn't be their friend as a result. It was just a dynamic. So I just found myself in life where I was really lonely and just had my partner. And I had a few friends from uni that I was cultivating that friendship, but I didn't feel like I was going anywhere with it. And I remember sitting down, having a really big cry about it, and then writing down, this is what my friendship looks like, and projecting myself into future. And I have so many friends and deep friendships and supportive friendships, and how it feels to be surrounded by my friends and all the journeys we go on, all the things we do together. And I wrote it all up, and looking back, it was only maybe 5 years ago, but I have come a long way. And I do remember that moment of like, oh, that's it. I'm actually changing that in my life. And I wrote it up, and I was committed to make all the calls, make all the texts until it's clear that I want to be friends, and that it was really action oriented, of course. But the first decision was to obviously invite that into my life through writing it down in my journal. And since then, it's been a very healing journey to be connecting with women, very healing.
I think maybe just the desire really to have genuine connections made me choose to act differently to how I was before, when I was attracting all these fake friendships, or not fake, but not entirely genuine friendships. So I think just finding people who I can be vulnerable with and like feel safe opening up to, but also just offering that space for other people as well. One of those things that made me realize that I was ready for this healing was me being friends with my ex's current girlfriend. So you know who you are, girl. Shout out to you. It's a very healing connection, and it was something obviously that I wasn't planning to do. It just naturally happened. And if we didn't share that kind of connection, if we still would have this strong of a connection as well, I don't know if that just added a special healing aspect to it as well. But I feel like because maybe we were just both wanting to have a peaceful connection At the beginning, definitely we were both like, what are your intentions? I don't know if you're being genuine. But I feel like as we continued to willingly foster the friendship, we were both feeling that it was genuine. And we also just found out, we actually do relate or resonate with each other really well. And we're not forcing this friendship. It naturally just happens. I think having that connection actually really made me realize that this doesn't happen normally, or this is not what society tells you how you should act around other people's exes, or not exes, but like you're kind of thinking, oh, you're supposed to be catty towards other people or behave in a certain way. You don't talk to them, or you're not supposed to be friends with them, which initially I was like, that's how I was thinking. I was like, I should distance myself. Why am I talking? Why am I getting myself involved? But I think once I looked past that and just saw the person for who they actually are, and I was like, this person I actually do enjoy talking to or get along with really well. Just have that need of a genuine connection be a lot stronger than anything else. I feel like, I don't know, that just kind of brought a lot more connections that were a lot more meaningful, and like people that I actually do want to have around in my life. Yeah.
I feel like it's been something that I've been conscious of probably since I was quite young. Deborah, who I shouted out to, was probably my first really intimate connection with a friend. And we really like bonded over just this like non-judgment and being able to share anything with each other. Like I could tell her anything and she'd hold space for that, and would always see me but also call me out, which I appreciated. And I think ever since then it's been so hard finding like connections where I truly feel like I could just say the most horrendous thought in my mind and not be judged for it, or just be seen and witnessed. And I feel fortunate to have connections throughout my life that's come to light. But I definitely think for me, the big dance has been around like, how am I showing up? What am I allowing into my life? What am I putting out and putting into other people's life? And just kind of working with that dance, and then connecting with the parts of me that tend to get in the way of forming connections, you know, whether I'm prioritizing other people. Yeah, I definitely feel like it's something that has been on my mind, like consciously, probably not so much with the sisters, like, but more so just like, who am I as a friend? Who do I want as a friend? And then like also knowing like you said, like who am I and who do I want to attract, right? Because when we don't necessarily know who we are, we're looking externally. I feel like, you know, source or the universe has like gifted me with experiences to really bring my connection to the feminine to light, and is allowing me to address safety and wounds of betrayal, and particularly wounds of competition. Similar to Alex sharing about connecting with one of your ex's current partners. Maybe it was a couple weeks after I ran into a girl from high school. I was in this tumultuous on and off situationship thing, and things kind of imploded there, and I was really upset and really distraught. And I'd booked in to go to women's community, bringing, you know, sisters together, which I think is so important for girls our age to be able to go to spaces like that and consciously connect with women. So I went to one of these events, and I was like, didn't want to go, but I like, because I had woken up in the morning and I was like, oh, I don't feel like going anywhere. I feel really sad. And then I had organized to go with a friend, and I just like leaped out of bed and I was like, girl, you getting your ass here, you got to go. And I went. So I arrived there, and I sit down, and Peter, the chick who runs Grow Girl Grow, was like, oh, how are you, babe? And I just like welled up, just like my eyes all teary, and I was like, I'm okay. And then people slowly start arriving, and this girl arrives and she walks in. She could have sat anywhere on this table, but she sits next to me, and she starts telling me about her life, and my face goes blank to the point where she's like, are you okay? And I was like, did you date so-and-so? And she was like, what? And then her friend across the table was like, could hear us say his name. She was like, I hate him. And so anyway, the girl who sits next to me ends up being this guy, this situationship, ends up being his ex-girlfriend. After that day, I was like, there is no chance that I cannot believe in the magic of the universe, because what are the odds of that happening? Meeting her as well has skyrocketed this healing. Having someone to witness your pain who's literally gone through the same pain with the same person, to reinforce this like, girl, you're not crazy. Girl, I'm here for you. I'm going to stand up for you. Like having someone with you through that experience has been so healing. Girl, you know who you are, and thank you. that to me is just like universal magic. And like, here is some stuff to heal and to work through. And I think what helped me unpack that, even though there was still this, when I was with him, this underlying unconscious, because he lied so much about his relationship with his exes and things like that. So I think I always had this underlying feeling of competition and dis-ease and mistrust, which was my intuition telling me like, it's actually him that you can't trust. And like, despite knowing on that conscious level, there was still so many unconscious drivers that brought about that wounding and that pain with the feminine. Having that connection with her and being witnessed, and the compassion that she has for me and the compassion that I have for her completely demolishes any feeling of competition at all, and has really just sewn up those cracks and those wounds. Thank you, magic, Pachamama, Mother Earth, Father Sky, everything that's here. I'm so grateful. Thank you everyone for listening and for hearing and witnessing our journey and for being a part of this episode. Thank you for being part of the 111 Ways to Heal community. And thank you, Anna, as well for hosting this and hosting us, and Alex for hosting us in your space, and Catherine as well, you're here in spirit. We're curious to hear about anyone's experiences with their own sisterhood wounds and betrayal and their relationship to the feminine, and maybe their reflections on where they've started, and, you know, whether the universe has pushed you guys to work through things, or whether this was something that you were consciously working on. Please share. We would love to hear. And thank you for being a part of our healing circle.
Please share this episode with your nearest and dearest. Give this a like and leave a review. All of these help us reach the right people who need some healing in their life. I hope this serves your healing process.